Well, you mentioned ego, and I know that's something you write about quite a bit in the book. And it's such a double-edged sword. The ego can be something, again, like you mentioned, something that's reflecting negative thoughts around us. But it sounds like what you're describing by reframing things and not listening to the negative thoughts and reinforcing them with more positive thoughts. This is a way that you can use what you already have, your ego, and make it work for you and work with you rather than working against you.
Exactly. The ego's designed to help us validate our existence, to take what we believe to be true and make it real. You know, I'm a mental strength coach. I'm an author. I write, I go out and do sessions with people, I teach, I speak, I do the things that help validate who I am. I'm a father. You know, if my one of my kids called, they're not kids anymore, but if they need help or something, you know, my ego is going to kick into gear to help them, to validate who I am. And if I can't get to them and they're in trouble, my ego is going to go into high alert mode, into major active mode to try and, you know, climb canyons and whatever I need to do to get to my kids, because that's how strong that belief is in me. So the ego is trying to help you experience who you believe you are. The question is, who do you believe you are? Because that's what it's going to help validate. You believe you're no good or you're not worthy. Guess what the ego is going to find for you? All the conditions to help you validate that. That's why step 4 is so important on dissolving limiting beliefs, because once you reprogram that and you dissolve the old things that have limited you and you start to program with new beliefs about who you are, the ego goes out to collect that and to give you the experience of that. So let's get practical for a second. Let's say there's a golfer and, you know, and he's in a tournament and he's coming down the stretch and he's contending, where before he was highly nervous, didn't feel right. His hands didn't feel right as he was maybe coming down 17 and he knew, you know, all he has to do is hold on or make another birdie or stay in the hunt. And he's just too nervous. And so because the belief is not strong enough in who he is in that moment to dominate the space and the energy of that moment, then the negative beliefs start taking over, because the ego knows what this will represent if there's success in this moment. And if that doesn't coincide with the truth that that person's holding about themselves and the belief of what they can do, that right hand's coming way over the top. That ball's going to get yanked into the bunker on the left, and it's going to be an impossible up and down. And they give away a shot, and the next thing you know, they finish third or fourth. And once again, you know, no championship, no completion, no move to the next level. So it's really important that a person step into this belief in who they are. And so I teach athletes how to step into that space and own it and say, this is who I am. This is what I want. This is where I want to be. And this is where I'm as comfortable. And then the next time they get in that situation and they remember that, they're sitting over the ball and they're like, this is exactly where I want to be. And I'm as relaxed as I am peering shots on the range right now. This 9 iron, I'm stuffing this thing in there right now. I can feel it. Let me take a deep breath. I got my line, I got my target, and then there's a butter smooth swing. They look up and that ball's just sailing right at the pin. Easy little two putt, or maybe they drop another birdie to finish, and it's just a much more comfortable experience because there's alignment with the identity.
Mm.
I'm giving away
Man,
all the secrets here.
this is good stuff, man. I love it. If I would have met you a few years ago, I probably wouldn't have quit golf. I quit golf for exactly that reason. Okay, so it's an interesting, to me, kind of a paradox, because this obviously is a process. What you're describing as far as like dismantling these negative self beliefs, the self limitations. It sounds like it's a process that is pretty much always ongoing, but it also seems like it's always accessible right now in this moment. And so, as you work with people, is it something that some people grasp instantaneously and they get it, they can plug and play in their life and have benefit, or how long can this process take for people to you don't arrive? I don't know if I'm phrasing that
Oh,
correctly, but you
that's a
know what I mean.
great,
Like, it
great
always
question.
seems like it's there in front of you if you want it, but it's also the process at the same time.
It's a great question. Every single individual has free will over time and how they process it. Some, it can take a while. They can take it in slow bites and steps. Other people, immediately it hits them and they go, I cannot believe I've had this power at my feet the whole time. I'm ready for this. I'm ready for the change. I'm ready to leave the old way of thinking behind me. And boom, there's immediate transformation. And then there's a whole bunch of people that are in the middle. So every human being is different based on how much unlimited joy, success, how much they can accept their infinite nature. Let's put it that way, because it's our nature to have boundaries and fight for a certain known space that we can live in. Because infinity is scary. It can be, that I can do anything. It's almost too much responsibility for a lot of people. But that's where the greats live. They live in that space of complete, unlimited, infinite potential.
Mm. That's a great segue to the second section of your book where you talk about the breakthrough. Is that what you are referring to when you write about the breakthrough?
Well, breakthrough is when you finally have taken the cap off potential and you now know it's infinite. So now you know, because not only do you know it's infinite, but you know that you're worthy of whatever you want to move towards. And that's what gives you the power to be able to move through into step 5 and 6, which is in breakthrough, where you learn how to embrace self respect, self honor, self love, self appreciation. And you learn how important that is to the feeling of worthiness. There's three poisons in the mind that can really hurt us. It's guilt, shame, and regret. And they are poisons. And so once you realize how to remove that poison, you still keep the responsibility, you keep the awareness. Obviously, everybody has to deal with consequence and karma, but you free yourself of the feeling of not being worthy. Then you're in breakthrough. And in breakthrough, you can start to harness the power of I am, which is the way you construct a new identity for yourself. And you start to go out and test it and to live it and to see how much you can embody this new idea of who you are. And if not, instead of making excuses or denying why something didn't happen, why a relationship didn't work out, why a sporting event or an athletic performance didn't work out, you start to just simply look at it like, okay, it didn't work out because I need to learn more about the conditions that will make it work out. So you start to get curious and you start to absorb more of the information. And again, that's what the great athletes do. They're like human sponges for insight, information, what can get them to the next level. And that has been my experience working with some of these top performing athletes.
Mm.
They know
Wow.
it's only an accretion of information because they have the belief and the knowing that they're going to get there. All they need is the awareness on how to do it. And so they're just accumulating awareness at that point. They're not fighting themselves anymore.
Mm. You mentioned those poisons of the brain, and I've heard you on a recent interview give a really practical example of this, of somebody who is trying to get into a relationship after having cheated on a previous relationship. Can you share that story with us and make that kind of more practical and relatable?
So the story, it's actually in the book. It's one of the quote conversations with a client where they were looking for love in their life and they had a bad breakup of a marriage because they cheated. And they kept this feeling of guilt and shame and regret in their mind. And they weren't having success with future relationships. And what I helped them discover was that holding an identity that says, I am guilty, I am shameful, and I am regretful does absolutely nothing to help them create what they want. As a matter of fact, it hinders them and causes the ego to go out and create another experience where they feel shameful, guilty, regretful. And that could be in a relationship. It can be in sports. It can, they can go have some losses and financially or in gambling. Who knows where they'll get the feeling, but the ego's job is to get you to that feeling. So by forgiving themselves, understanding they did the best they could at that moment, there's no other truth than that. I don't care how they want to fight it with, well, woulda, coulda, shoulda, which is, our lies. Woulda, coulda, shoulda, our lies. It's only what you did. They can finally heal themselves and move on because you're never who you were. You're only who you decide to be right now. And that's the power we each have. Now, I want to be clear saying I no longer feel guilty, shameful, or regretful about something I did because I'm not condoning cheating in any relationship whatsoever. There's consequence and karma to that. But to carry it forward does not help with what you're trying to create now. And it doesn't condone what you did. And that person may not want to talk to you for several more years or decade, who knows? Um, and that's part of their choice. And you have to understand that because of what happened. But that doesn't mean you have to carry the pain and suffering any longer, which is causing you loneliness. You can finally see a new version of yourself that's learned from that experience, that knows how to respect a relationship, that knows how to respect yourself. And you can finally make peace with it and heal that guilt, shame, and regret. And that's truly a transformational moment.